Welcome to the Wolf Beat. My name is Joy Hamilton, your host, and today I am speaking with Cyril. Hi, Cyril. How are you doing?
Awesome, thanks. Nice, Rachel. Good day.
Cyril, I would like you to tell us a little bit about yourself and about your special event that you have going in Victoria.
Beautiful. HKCM. I'll start off with an introduction of who I am. Ice Rachel CM, Asa Wigwakulak Lakwongan Huilnu, Selhuma Nielsen Attend Laches, Selhuma Nielsen Attend Laches, and I'll share with you in English what I mentioned. Good day, honorable friend. My name is Wigwakulak, my traditional name that hails from Laches, where my mother Selhuma was born and raised for the first 10 years of her life. And my mother Selhuma was born and raised there 10 years of her life by her grandparents and great-grandparents, and later went to residential school. And honored to be here with you. My English name is Cyril, which I go by Cyril or Wigwakulak in my nation and the territory, and very near and dear to my heart to be able to share what Song East Tours brings to our hosting the capital city. What we do in Song East Tours is we do cultural walking tours and canoe tours of the 7 spindle whorls in Lekwungen territory in Victoria. We take people around to a few of the spindle whorls, Hoseakum, which is down on the causeway, the inner harbor, which means place of mud. And we share a bit about what that cultural significance is, as well as to some of the storyboards on the causeway at the harbor and sharing some of the history of what that area is to Lekwungen people, followed by if they engage in a canoe tour, we'll do our safety briefing with them, take them out on the canoe to Hui Huang, where Laurel Point is. There's another spindle whorl there, but we'll speak about the cultural significance of the land, of the burial cairns and the house post guarding figures that used to be there. And then we'll cross the busy water where the marine vessels come in, the seaplanes will disembark at Delta, go up to the Palaches spindle whorl and speak about the cultural significance there. The beautiful part about Song East Tours is being able to immerse our visitors in transporting them to where the story needs them to go. So they get to experience our ancestral highways of how our people traveled by canoe. And really important because we speak about a lot of aspects, history prior to colonization, as well as things that were going on during colonization, with that area being a hub for trade, Quitlel, Camas, for example. It was such a beautiful area for harvesting, such as the salmon that came up there, the herring, and the shellfish, and not so much now can we harvest there because of the marine vessels, the seaplanes, and it would take about 7 generations before you see, if they stopped all that, it would be 7 generations before we would be able to harvest out of there. But the beautiful part about the Song East Tours is the positive impact achieving connections created with people who are hungry to know more about tribal local culture. Lekwungen, very rich because in the harbor alone there were thousands of Lekwungen people, and not just centrally located. Our people moved with the seasons for harvesting salmon, for example, going to ceremony, as well as there were stationary villages as well. Where my mother is from, Laches, known as the original Songhees Islands, known by their anglicized names of Chatham Island 1, Chatham Island 2, and Discovery Island. Where my mom was born and raised, there were longhouses out there. And so my mother calls it a heaven on earth. No hunger, no homelessness, no violence. And it's always an honor to deliver marine vessel tours from the boat that speaks about the island, the stewardship, the way of life that existed with people living out there and being self-sustaining. So there was, for example, so many different types of apple trees and pear trees. They had their own garden, they had chickens, they lived off the sea, And my mother's great-great-grandparents built their home out there when the longhouses were uh, starting to, uh, for lack of a better term, not go away, but people were moving away from the islands onto areas around Lekwungen territory, and the relocation impacted that heavily during 1911. And so the cultural significance, and it's going to back up a bit with respect to Sony's tours, really does share with people knowledge behind what has been hidden from history. And that aspect of, for example, the relocation in 1911 from the last known village site of Lekwungen people at Delta to where we are now, New Songhees Indian Reserve 1A, for example. And the first reserve in BC, not something to be proud of, but something that is good to share with people why it happened. And the Songhees Tours delves into some of the hard history, but in ways that is non-shaming and non-blaming, and really aligns well with truth and reconciliation. People are really hungry about it because there's an appetite. People are hearing it on social media, people are reading about it in the newspapers, people are hearing it word of mouth, and being able to engage with tribal local providers such as Songhees Tours for Lekwungen territory. It provides them that first-hand experience with knowledge keepers. And so that connection provides a source, the root of what is accurate in our culture.
I wanted to ask you something. Is it yourself, or do you have other people that also do these tours? And what is their background? What I mean is are they well versed like yourself? Do they have a background as well, with their families?
Wonderful question. Really, depending on where the Songhees Tours guide comes from, I'm very fortunate, lucky to have my mother, who she is, having been born and raised at Tlichas, hearing the Snaponic, known as teachings, of where she came from, being raised by her grandparents and great-grandparents, as well as the nation who started Songhees Tours with Cecilia, comes with a wealth of knowledge from her family as well. And so each guide is trained to share what is, I don't want to say accurate, but what is culturally allowable. Like, we set standards for what is for public consumption to share. And we're really careful not to share some of the sacredness behind that knowledge, right? So that's meant for Lekwungen,
Right.
and not public consumption, such as our creation stories, for example.
So, Cyril, what about you? What about your background? What other things have you done aside from what you're doing today?
Beautiful. If you have a couple of years, I'd love to share. It's beautiful because when I was growing up, I was 5 years old to 12 years old. I would be down at Artisan Row with my family, my mother, grandmothers, aunties, and I'd have a role to fulfill, and really got to immerse in connecting with visitors globally and be with family as well who were selling their items along Artisan Row. And as I grew older, they sent me on cultural tasks to go to some of the shops around town, connect with people, pick up supplies, or even if they had some items that they had extra made of, whether it was designs, carvings, bracelets, chokers, bringing them to the shops and connecting with people there to see if they were interested in buying at the time. And so really love being engaged and connected with the public that way. And when the opportunity came up for Songhees Tours, I jumped at the opportunity with my son. So he and I were involved after the pandemic started to ease up. But other interests of who I am, being involved in the community, being war canoe competitor when I was a teenager. I just really fueled my desire to be out on the canoe and tours because every day is a beautiful day when you're on the canoe, right? And so being able to represent and share cultural truth telling with respect to both my late grandmother and my mother surviving institutions such as the Indian Hospital and residential school, there was a lot that was hidden from history, as I mentioned earlier, that I'm able to share with visitors from around the globe and be able to, you know, feel supported by the team who's also, part of their role is to share what happened, but also share about how we're moving forward together in a nice, still no good medicine way.
I know you and I both went to Camosun College, and that's where I got to know you, Cyril. But I know that you've also done other things. That's sort of what I was wondering, like aside from that, you've also been involved in other community projects, haven't you? Have you not? Like as
Yeah.
far as, were you involved in policing? Were you involved in other things?
Yeah. So really love those experiences. It helped season me, right, in terms of my growth as a person. Policing, social work, counseling, Indigenous entrepreneurship, as well as everything in between, frontline, food and beverage, retail, just so much value in working in different industries and being able to find my path for a while or forge your own path, right? And so really found that with Sonya's tours.
I imagine, you have a family, don't you? You have children.
I do.
And so like you said, your son does this, but also you have a daughter. Does she get involved sometimes, like all of your family members, or?
Yeah, really happy that my babies, they're 30 years old and 20 years old. So my daughter, very well versed in language on her mom's side, where she comes from, and she loves being involved in travel journeys, sharing the language and learning Lekwungen, and she's come out on the canoe a couple of times, and it's took her and I and our lead tour guide at the time. It only took three of us to move the canoe, so both love being on the water, right? My son, he did it for a season and loves being involved in anything he can be to, what am I looking for? Satisfy his mind and what he wants to learn. So it's just wonderful to have them out there when they can. And also my daughter has brought down my grandkids. And when my oldest grandson was 2, he picked up the drum that I had sitting on the table, and he picked up, he started drumming. And so I took my drum and taught him how to sing and drum, some rhythm, and he's very natural at it. And what I was teaching him at the time was, awa mommy, hey yo, hey yo. And so he would do that. And, he's a little out of sync, but he's got the rhythm, and people are walking by in the harbor smiling, and they're like touched. And my daughter, she's giving me the stink eye, right? Because what I was teaching my grandson was, no way, mommy, no way, mommy. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. I love it when people can pass down, all their history, everything that they've learned from their elders, and even past that, great grandparents, and then, the future generations. They can take that and then, go on and maybe do something else, or introduce the public to another form, But it's still the tradition. It's still the stories, and I think that's really important for people. And I think it's really important for the youth because they need to know that. And I think that brings us very, very strong unity and community
It does.
for First Nations. But aside from First Nations, it's good for just the public. And it brings them together, I think.
It does. And you brought up 2 really amazing points in terms of culture is timeless. And we really have our Sililuk to thank for that, our ancestors, because I'm here because of them. Without their strength, their resilience, their acts of resistance, and protecting our culture and continue to transmit it, I wouldn't be here, right? I wouldn't be sharing my name. My family might not even be here at all, right? And so through times of like biological warfare with smallpox, residential schools, Indian hospitals, those atrocities, our people are very resilient. And one of the stories with the Deltas, that was the last known village site of the Lekwungen. And by 1911, you see there's only 250, 300 Lekwungen left. Meanwhile, you go all the way out almost to Chianu, where Lekwungen were, past Yuvik, Gyro Park. There's Lekwungen, not just the harbor, Beacon Hill Park. Thousands upon thousands of Lekwungen. By 1911, 250, 300 Lekwungen left, relocated to where we are now, New Songhees Indian Reserve. They didn't allocate enough land for there to be growth because they didn't think we'd survive past the 1930s or 1940s. And here we are. Lekwungen Songhees Nation has over 700 members. The Esquimalt Nation over 350. So we finally reached 1,000 people in terms of Lekwungen population. And so when our language was at 1%, it was dormant. We have 57% fluent speakers in Lekwungen. And we also when we start off our tour, we started off in a good way, and I still know good medicine way, because we welcome people in our language. And when you hear people speaking our language, or even anywhere across Turtle Island, you hear the traditional language, you hear the traditional drumming and singing. It's our ancestors pushing their way through that person, resisting genocide, resisting assimilation, and beautiful because we get to share that with visitors from around the globe. And we've had people visiting from all parts of the globe who don't speak English, and their relatives are translating for them what we're sharing. Other guides, Melissa and I, will share with groups, and sometimes the son or daughter is translating for the mom or dad or the grandparents, and they reflect on that, and they're processing that, and they're touched, and they share about where we come from. This is what's happening, similar to the struggle that some of our parents, grandparents, great grandparents endured. And so it's just beautiful to have people who have the empathy and care, are being connected, right, through these experiences, and not just enjoying being out on the land, enjoying being able to share this knowledge. Yeah.
So how often do you run these tours?
So
And where are they?
Yeah, so Songhees Tours operates out of the visitor center, and we used to have a kiosk, a tent in Ships Point in the parking lot. So we've moved up, and we have space inside the visitor center where you can go in and see some designs by Esquimalt Nation members, Songhees Nation members. We have an office below, but we book online, we book in person. Our manager has set up a system for us where we can operate, I believe it's Tuesday to Saturday, and then we have corporate events, corporations we can bring in, like Lindblad Expeditions has come in, National Geographic, as well as other organizations from magazines and that sort of thing. So if there's something that people are looking for, they want us to go into an institution, that's something that we can do as well. So it's always beautiful being able to share that I still look at good medicine culture by bringing it to people if they're not able to make it to us. Yeah.
Well, I've learned a lot because, I've heard so much about this, but I didn't know the extent. And what I love to hear is not just all the traditions, but the fact that, people can go down, they can hear about it. Like I said, brings the community together.
Yeah.
But it's very good for the First Nations people. It's very good for your, the Songhees people, because they get to introduce to everybody, here, we're just not just a group of people. This is what we're about. This is, part of Victoria. This is our lands. These, this is what happened. And I think that's really important for people. because in the past, nobody had said anything about anybody, and especially when it came to First Nations people. You didn't talk about lands or anything like that. And now people are coming out and talking about who they are and being proud of it. I think that's great. I really do.
Very, very culturally enriching, right? It's not just,
Congratulations.
thank you. It's not just an education. We don't try to treat it as an education. We do our best to connect people with storytellers, our guides, as well as connect people with land and be able to share with them in non-shaming and non-blaming ways some of the things that have been left out of history, like I mentioned earlier. But it's the language that's creating not only connections, but a sense of belonging for people who may not have had the opportunity to learn as they were growing up. The accurate piece with respect to tribal, local, cultural ways, like you mentioned, it wasn't something that was spoken about, land, treaty, right? It was something that was swept under the rug, and mainstream institutions, Western academia would often not, there's only so much you can learn about the fur trade, right?
Yeah.
And so other aspects need to be embedded and integrated so people are well aware of, the Lekwungen territory hosts the capital city, not the other way around.
That's right.
Right? So the unceded territory piece, there's a lot of amazing questions that come out at the end of tours because we leave space for, there's no
That's what I
dumb
was going to ask
questions.
you.
Yeah.
Do people, I'm sure, must be full of questions.
Yeah.
And so you're able to answer as much as you can, right?
Yeah, I love that. I love the questions because it's a safe space, right? We make every effort to respond. If we're not able to respond, it's very rare. We'll collaborate, we'll consult. It's not done in a silo. We're always guided by elders and leadership, family, debriefing together, as well as sharing, we're very well prepared by the people who trained us, but also where we come from in terms of our families being immersed in not only the culture, but in our family, our nation. And the questions that come up, we always remind people that there's no dumb questions. This is coming from a place of people being genuine, right? And this is the place that you can ask it. This is a place where, if you have a question about residential schools, if you have a question about why there aren't more canoes in the harbor, right? It's very valid. Everybody has some great
I'm sure
engagement
they
questions.
do. Yeah. But it sounds like you handle them very, very well and very professional, as much as you can,
Yes. Yep.
right?
Yes.
Because everything, and especially with, First Nations spirituality, their backgrounds, you have protocol. So you
Yes.
have to
Yeah.
be careful how you say something to somebody,
Yeah, and we've found that people who are visiting and take the tour have amazing reflections about when we speak about Hoseikam, the spindle whorl with that Hiocholupton, our elder Butch Dick made. There's 4 eagles on it. And then we speak about the spiritual significance when we see an eagle, and that's one of our ones who've passed on who are checking on us. And people really take that to heart and speak about their personal journey of grief and loss. And so it's not just come on our tour and check this out. No, it's more about, getting to know each other as well as, sharing, right? So it's such a beautiful way that it breaks down barriers and creates opportunities for dialogue.
Cyril, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the Wolf Beat. I really appreciate everything that you talked about, and I wish you the best success for you and your group. I hope you continue to do really well, and your family.
Yes, thank you. It's been an honor. Always near and dear to my heart to speak about Songhees tours. Let's go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, hey, ah, hey, ah, hey, ah.